Jeremiah chapter 45. It's very short, it's just 5 verses, and it speaks about Baruch the scribe. And the title here is Encouragement to Baruch. But some commentators, David Paulson, combines chapter 36 and chapter 45 together, because chapter 36, we remember that it was God asked Jeremiah to now write a scroll of all his preachings, presumably Jeremiah chapters 1 to 25. So Jeremiah commissioned Baruch to write it. Baruch, so here they combine it together, because here in 45, 5 little verses, it gives you a slight view into this guy called Baruch. Who was he? It's, we can only surmise that his role is huge in Jeremiah, that he was the one who wrote this down, and we owe him a huge debt. Jeremiah preached in the streets of the cities of Judah, in the alleys in Jerusalem, outside the Jerusalem temple, with people coming in and out. He said, oh, be obedient, remember, God is our God and we are his people. So, and he preached to the priests, he preached to the people, he preached to the nobility, to the king. And we know that when Baruch wrote the scroll, it's, when you look at any chapter for that matter, chapters 1 to 25, it's easy for us to look at it and say, how difficult it is to write. In those days, it is. So here, where do we hear first of Baruch? Baruch possibly is well connected. It's, he has family inside the civil courts or whatever. You have the king and his nobles in the palace. You have the temple high priest, the bouncer, and whoever else, the little priest that perform all the duties. And by this time, it's become a very sophisticated society. You have the civil service. You have people who record deeds of title. Remember, Jeremiah was in prison, and God said, hey, your cousin coming to see you, to sell you land, buy it. So he bought it, but he was in prison, he couldn't do anything. So Baruch was hired. He possibly worked in the civil service, land grants and whatever, and he was the one who made sure titles were transferred and executed correctly, put in a pot and buried it. That is Baruch. So we heard of him there. And knowing who he was, Jeremiah, most likely, hey, this guy knows how to read and write. So God said to Jeremiah, write a scroll. Okay, Baruch, write a scroll. So Jeremiah would dictate. It's not easy, even though you say, oh, it's chapter 1 to 25, all the sermons that Jeremiah has ever preached. So you would take a pointed nib or whatever, dip in the ink and write, dip some more, write, dip until the whole book, you spend days and nights. It's estimated 9 months to write it. And guess what? It gets to the king, to be read to the king. As it was read, the king would slice it up and drop it in the fire. It was winter time, there was a fire going. Cut it up. Each time each section was read, it would cut it up, drop in the fire, burn it, cut it up, drop it up until the whole scroll was read, and was burned. So what's going to happen now? God said to write another one, write another scroll. like it's so easy. Yeah, he did, they did. That Jeremiah, again, dictated to Baruch, and he wrote again, and day and night, nip into the ink, whatever ink they're using, right, dip some more, right, dip some more, right, until the scroll was written and more things were added to it. And you think, so what is 45? 45, possibly Baruch, being a young man and being able to read and write, has has ambitions, because it does say here. He has ambitions to rise up, just like today's world, we have ambitions to take the next exam so that we rise up in the civil service. So you get more responsibility, more pay, and more pension, whatever, and you rise up that way. It was no different than in Baruch's case, that he had ambitions. So he speaks of it in chapter 45. Verse 1 says, the word that Jeremiah the prophet spake unto Baruch, the son of Neriah, when he had written these words in a book at the mouth of Jeremiah, in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of King Josiah, king of Judah. So we know that this just reiterated what happened. So presumably 45 and 36 happened at the same time, because it's the 4th year of Jehoiakim, and the scroll was written and was shown to Jehoiakim, which he was read to him. He cut it up, burned it. So very likely chapter 45, even though it's placed here, happened at the same time as chapter 36. And thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, unto thee, O Baruch, thou didst say, woe is me now, for the Lord hath added grief to my sorrow. I fainted in my sighing, and I find no rest. So he possibly was a little depressed, and there was some kind of self-pity there, but nevertheless, he did the work of God. And here, according to Christopher Wright, he split he split the two, 36, and then he separated 45, because he thinks that Baruch, the study of Baruch, is important enough to give him a whole consideration of the whole chapter of 45, even though 45 and 36 are linked. And I agree in the sense that if Baruch has said, I give up and ran away like Jonah would have done, we would not have Jeremiah written down. We owe, if Jeremiah was written by Baruch, then we owe a huge debt to Baruch that at the time it seems futile. It's like nobody wants to read this or even learn about it. It seems at that time futile. But we thank God that there are people who would persevere, even though it's so dark. This is, understand, he wasn't a prophet. He was just a servant of the prophet. And it shows you how important we have a prophet there, but there are lots of servants who are unnamed, at least Baruch is named, but there are lots of people in the Bible who hasn't mentioned, but whose name is not mentioned, but they support the work of the prophet. And it comes down to us. 2,600 years later, we are reading Jeremiah, and it's becoming, our faith has become bolstered by reading it, to see what they went through, but yet they plowed through. They become obedient. I think the New Testament says, to a point of death. And we know many of these prophets it did not end well with them. Their words was not accepted. They were even, many of them suffered death, and a noble death. So verse 5 is very important. God said to Baruch, and seekest thou great things for thyself? Seek them not. See, he knew that he has ambitions to rise up in the civil service. So God said, I know you are ambitious for your career, but do not. Well, for one thing, not at this time when the city is going to be destroyed soon. So to rise up would really be fools would be foolish. He says, because why? Seek them not. For behold, I will bring evil upon all flesh, saith the Lord. And thy life will I give thee for a prey in places whither thou wilt go. So, this seek them not, because the time I will bring evil on all flesh, but I will guarantee that you will live, that you will not fall prey to all these things that happen to people. which eventually he and Jeremiah were safe, even though after the king sought, and his people sought to kill them both, and they ran away and hid, and later they were brought back and be imprisoned in the temple. And even after the temple was destroyed, the people who left, Johanan and his ragtag group of people said, let's go to Egypt. He said, no, don't go there. You die there too. You'll never come back. The Lord says, stay, stay, stay. And they were accused, both of them. You're a false prophet. You speak falsehood. You are pro-Babylonian traitors. That's the things you will get when you become a servant of the Lord. Understand that God sees. It's not like he's blind. He knows. He did preserve their lives there. And God recognized his pain. And even as they watch, and God's anger. And the question here, I will just mention something. Question has always been asked, by non-believers, that your God is so evil that he would kill these children. So the thing is, with God, our God is a righteous and just God. He cannot walk by and see evil. Sometimes the children are killed when he killed the whole, I'm sure with the fall of Jerusalem, many innocent people were killed too, children and all. But later on, Ezekiel was the prophet in exile. Ezekiel put it the most. Jeremiah just hinted at it. But Ezekiel says about God, do I take any pleasure in the death of the wicked? Declares the sovereign Lord. Rather, am I not pleased when they turn from their ways and live? And God reiterated, I take no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but rather that they turn from their evil ways and live. Turn from your evil ways. Why will you die, people of Israel? That it hurts God just as much to punish. But he has got to be true to his person, that he is righteous and just. But why the children? Up to this point, the nation is judged as a nation, and the nation is blessed as a nation. So the sins of the fathers is visited on the children to the third and fourth generation. But with the new, when they come back from exile, with the new covenant, this no longer applies, that God will put his word into the hearts of mankind, regardless of whether they're Jewish, young and old, or not, young and old. Paul says that there will be no difference between Jew or Greek, male or female, free or captive, that we all come to God through our Lord Jesus Christ. It will be an individual responsibility. When God puts his word in your heart, it is the individual that needs to respond or reject God. And they have to deal with the consequences individually. So no longer will the whole nation go into exile, the whole nation be blessed too. We don't know how many would constitute punishment, but definitely the apostasy among the Jews was tremendous, which we will read later on, not just before the exile and destruction of Jerusalem, but even after. They did not change. God knows the hearts of men, that they will not change, that even children will be punished together with the parents.